when you listen to Donald Trump talk now, when you hear the language he's using now, it is essentially the same things that the Chinese Communist Party, for example, says about the United States and our democracy.
Well, that's saying something. On Trump's return to the political spotlight and his continued peddling of conspiracy theories, Max Boot writes this in the Washington Post today. This is an interesting quote. Former President Donald Trump's secret weapon has always been that it is hard for educated people to take him seriously. But while Trump is not a serious person, he is a serious threat to our democracy, and we make a grave mistake if we dismiss him as a punchline. We've committed that blunder before. Still here with us are Don Calloway and Matthew Dowd. Don, I have another quote for you. This is Charlie Sykes wrote this for this network. Trump's embrace of the story shows how the right's doom loop of craziness works and how it's accelerating narratives that began in the fevered imaginations of his hardcore true believers. It's impossible to know whether Trump genuinely believes he can move back into the White House this summer, but that's not the point. The story works for him as long as other people believe it. Don, how heavily does that notion weigh on you on a daily basis now?
You know, the notion of him getting back the White House in this calendar year does not weigh on me whatsoever. However, the notion of him being a viable candidate in 2024 is a very real thing. But I want to contextualize what happened in his big return, if you can call it that, this past weekend. It's important to remember, as we discussed last week, that the man and his organizations are in serious civil and potentially criminal trouble. So we don't know that, first of all, he gives these speeches on a paid basis. So he has to raise money to feed the grift. Certainly his properties are not ringing in the dollars like they were at one point, if ever. And so that's part of what's happening here, is that he has to make money with these crazy speeches. That said, the previous authors are right. We should not dismiss him as a non-factor electorally. But from what I saw in watching that speech, he was certainly a fighter who appears to have lost a step just a little bit. And if you're a Republican interested contender, I think you saw that. And I think you might be readying yourself for Iowa and New Hampshire in 2024. But lastly, I would say he can still get you 5 1/3. And that's a pretty dangerous contender. So Democrats would be really, really silly to write him off like we did in the fall of 2015.
Could also be that those giant pants have cost him a step along the way. Hey, Matthew, I have yet to have the chance to talk to you since the Memorial Day address by our president, who used that setting at Arlington. And as we've been saying for days, Memorial Day speeches by our presidents, while always emotional, are usually a non-event. He declared that our democracy is in peril, and it got the attention of the audience he was looking for, and I'm wondering if you found it as bracing.
I thought, Brian, what he said was exceedingly compelling in what he said. I think it's true. I think we're in the most dangerous moment we've seen as a country, not since World War II. I think this is a more dangerous moment than World War II, because we were actually united in a confrontation against authoritarian regimes. We're not united in a confrontation right now against a group, a party, a legacy party that's pushing autocracy in the midst of this. And so I think it's more dangerous, as dangerous as a space we've been in since the Civil War. And I think that's how do we honor the legacy of people that fought for our democracy and fought for voters' rights and fought for all the people buried in veteran cemeteries across the country, not only Washington, but across the country. How do we honor them who died on behalf of our democracy? Not the least of which the people that got beaten up and killed in Selma and in various places around the country in fighting for voters' rights. And so I think we all have to ask ourselves, and I know the president's asking himself, how do we honor that legacy at a time our democracy is in peril? And I would remind people one thing. I said early on in September 2015 that Donald Trump would win the Republican nomination. And my fear isn't Donald Trump and the craziness that comes out of the Mad King in Mar-a-Lago. I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about when the general leaves the field and there's a group of troops behind him, what lieutenants emerge to continue to lead the troops of people that are opposed to what we all believe in as our democracy? Who leads then in the aftermath? Donald Trump could go to Mars, and we have a huge problem that's facing America today because a third of the country buys into this. And so, and how we're organized and how jurisdictions are done, and if voting rights are taken away, it's a serious problem, not because of Donald Trump, but because of what he's unleashed in this country.